Magic, 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 the gathering. Yeah. Hello everyone, let's start.
Today's episode is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast.
Wizard of the Coast.
You know how they say nothing's new?
You know what I'm saying.
That everything has already been done before? Well, today, right now, in the opening seconds of this video, all of us are going to create something that's never been seen before in the history of the universe. No.
Whoa, wow. History of the universe. Interesting. What is this?
Joke, not clickbait in the slightest. In order
Not
to do
clickbait.
this trick, you're gonna need a regular deck of 52 playing cards. Easy. Pause this video now, run out, go grab them.
Let's now get some cards.
I'll be right here.
I'll listen to it.
You didn't even pause the video and I was just standing there silently. Here you go. You got it? Great. Awesome. Now,
Yes, I didn't even pause the video, correct?
all you need to do, start shuffling. Start shuffling those cards as I talk to you. Really randomize the order of those cards. You'll notice that I'm really bad at shuffling cards here. They're flipping all over the place. This is about as good as I can get. I'll show off how good I am at the old, like, dual bridge shuffle here. Okay, that was good. But this, I can't do it. I can't. Hopefully yours was a little bit better than mine. So to continue this trick, we don't have to, you're done. In your hands right now, you have something the universe has never seen before. No, not just a deck of cards, but a sequence of cards that is entirely unique. One that, in all probability, has never before existed on the face of planet Earth.
Really?
It's pretty amazing, right? Right? You find that pretty amazing, don't you?
No, that's
Are you
unbelievable.
not impressed by just shuffling a few cards? Well,
I'm not impressed. I don't think that is possible.
excuse me for trying to get you to create something entirely original. Don't see that many other YouTube channels get you to do that.
Ooh, salty pet and salty.
Cut to the intro.
The intro. Dun, 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 dun.
Bridge.
Bridge.
Release pressure from the bottom. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory.
Oh, wow, that can be improved. That can be improved. That can be improved. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory.
Show that goes through calculators faster than a Magic tournament grinder goes through card sleeves. First, let's talk about that cold open, shall we? It seems
Like
weird
how you guys
what
have-
I just kind of presented you with, right? That something as mundane as a deck of cards would be able to produce something that is entirely unique, but consider this. Whenever you shuffle a 52 card deck, the number of possible combinations for that deck is over 80 million trillion, and then take that number and multiply it by another trillion. That is more than the number of atoms in and on planet Earth. If every single person on Earth took a deck of cards and just started shuffling it 1,000 times every day for the rest of their lives, the odds of one of them winding up with a deck sequence that randomly matches up with the same random deck sequence of cards that you hold in your hands right now is still less than 1%.
Oh.
That is every single person on planet Earth 1,000 times a day for the rest of their lives, under 1%. And that's
Statistics.
just the
Awesome.
possibilities for one 52 card deck of cards. Imagine what you could do with something bigger, like say the granddaddy of all card games, Magic the Gathering.
Magic the
Cue the cool card transition. So today's episode is sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and their new online card game Magic Arena, which is great because it gives me a chance to redeem myself when it comes to online card games.
Redeem.
You see, I'm kind of new to this world, and truth be told, I am not very good. Damn it, he blocked it.
What? No!
I hate effing card games.
Come on.
This sucks. Damn it. Damn it, and it reflected.
No!
I hate everything. I hate card games. Reflected!
Oh, God!
I told you!
Come on. It's the worst.
Oh wait, he's actually walking?
I'm done. Not sure if Wizards knew about this when they contacted me about the episode, but in concept, I should be good at this game, right? Magic is a card game. It all boils down to math and statistics. So today, I wanted to figure out a way to outsmart the game of Magic. I want to dedicate a sponsored episode of this, Game Theory, to just make me a better player.
Get good! Given that, you know, room for improvements, yay, I guess.
To use our research and over-analysis skills to discover an optimal strategy, so
Optimum.
quite frankly, I can suck less. That's it. That's all I want. Is that so much to ask? Can math make you a better Magic player? If
True.
you're a noob like me, can statistics and probability help you to
and
compete in the major arenas? Will I become the new Magic World Champion and get my face commemorated onto a super rare commemorative card? No, certainly not those last ones, but heck, it might work for you. And you know what? That makes it worth sticking around. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Magic, the game has been around since 1993, and it currently has more than 20 million players worldwide.
The game is older than me. Think about that.
Which means it's basically setting the standard for all trading card games to follow. Each player starts off with 20 life points and a deck of at least 60 cards. Unless, of course, you're playing Draft or Sealed or Commander, etc., etc. There's a lot of different ways to play this game. You win, very simply, by getting your opponent's life down to 0 via various summons, like zombies and dragons and bears, oh my. Or, my personal favorite method, by milling them out, which means getting them to draw their last card. It's as simple as that. Well, okay, it might not be that simple. There's a lot more nuance to this whole thing, but you know what? We're gonna cross that bridge when we come to it. So if we're gonna use scientific reasoning to become a master of the cards, we need to break this game down to its purest fundamentals.
Scientific reasoning for the masters of the cards. You know, the masters of the cards. What am I doing?
Magic is what's known as an imperfect game. Now, I don't mean that this game sucks. I mean, first off, it doesn't, but even if I did mean it that way, there is no way that the brand would ever let this episode see the light of day if that's what I really meant. No, by imperfect, I mean that Magic is a game where you, as the player, only have partial information. Consider as your counterexample chess or checkers. You see all of your pieces as well as all of your opponent's pieces and know how all of those pieces can move at any given point in time. They are perfect games. You are working with perfect knowledge. Everything that can be known is known by both players all the time. Your ability to win chess or checkers or any other perfect game comes down to you using your knowledge more effectively than your opponent. But games like Magic are all about imperfect knowledge. Sure, you know what's in your hand and what you have in your deck, but the order your deck is shuffled in? No clue. What your opponent has in his hand or in his deck? Unclear. Your ability to win in Magic really depends on two things: a combination of strategy against your opponent and chance against the odds. Outsmarting your opponent while still drawing decent enough cards to make the right moves at exactly the right time that you need them. So, how do we use math then to better our odds of winning? Well, let's start with overcoming that first variable of chance. Not everyone can possess the soul of an ancient pharaoh and tap into the heart of the cards,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
which allows them to get exactly the card that they need right when they need
I need a card. It's called DUX Mechana. DUX.
it. But in Magic, you can stack the deck in your favor, literally. Unlike the imperfect game of poker, for instance, you build your own deck of 60 cards and bring that deck into a duel in Magic, meaning that you can fill that deck with duplicates of cards that you want to be more likely to draw when you're in the middle of a battle. You overcome chance using probability.
probability, chances.
For a real-world example, let's look at the deck that won one of the biggest Magic tournaments recently, Mythic Championship 3 in Las Vegas, where nearly $1 million of prize money was up for grabs.
Wow.
There's the deck. Now, you may look at this list and not recognize any of these cards, but one thing that you'll immediately notice is that
It's repetition.
there's a lot of redundancy here in this deck, with practically every card having at least one, and sometimes up to 3 other duplicates in that deck of 60. And for players who are more experienced in Magic, you'll notice that even the cards that are one-offs actually seem to function similarly to other cards that are already in the deck. Simic Guildgate, for instance, is just there to serve as an additional, though slightly weaker, extra blue-green mana source, because he is already maxed out on Breeding Pool and Hinterland Harbor. Blink of an Eye, Callous Dismissal, also one-offs, but do very similar things for the deck. Now, think back to what we just did in the intro. If your 60-card deck of Magic has all unique cards, that's 8.3 times 10 to the 81st possible deck orders. That is a huge number. But with all the duplicates that you see in this championship-winning deck, its creator, Matias Leverato, has knocked that down to 8.1 times 10 to the 63rd.
That's still a big number though. Think about
possible
it.
permutations. Now, that is still a massively huge number, right? Sure, it is, but the percent change from this first number to this new one is actually him reducing variability by almost 100%. He reduced the effects of chance on his deck by nearly 100% simply by duplicating a good number of the cards. Some decks take this redundancy to the extreme to ensure that they can shrink the possible permutations down even further. Here's looking at you, Burn. But we're still not done conquering chance here. For your opening hand in Magic, you draw 7 cards. Now, as you would expect, your opening moves basically define how the rest of the game is gonna play for you. So having that solid first hand is gonna be essential. We figured out that the number of possible first hands from this championship winning deck is 444,247. That's a huge number to be sure, but it is also nowhere close to the 386,206,920, the total number of starter hand possibilities if your
Without
deck
duplicates.
is all singles. You've taken this amount of chance and you've reduced it down to 0.1% of its original size. You've controlled as best as you reasonably can for one of the game's most difficult elements, chance. So, through the hidden powers of probability, you've started to rein in the randomness inherent in these cards, which means it's time to look at the other half of this game, the strategy element.
Strategy.
Outplaying the other player. The game outside of the game, the metagame. Now, this
The
is
metagame.
nothing new, right? It's basic Magic to know that you have your 3 main playstyles, your fast aggressive decks, your slower control the game style decks, and mid-range.
You cannot go all full aggro or full control or full mid range. You need to have a moderate control on different categories, different parts. That's what makes you a better player. Or you can just lose, or you can just go full aggro or full control or full mid range and just lose a bunch of times.
And that certain builds have a higher likelihood of beating other builds. The meta math here boils down to you taking your deck, say a blue control, figuring out the chances that it has of defeating another type of deck, like a red aggro deck, and then multiplying it by the odds of you facing that deck type. Rinse and repeat for all deck types to learn your overall win probability, statistically guaranteeing you the highest levels of success. That's the meta, and it's been a huge part of this game for decades, and as such is super well documented by people far more qualified than me. It's always changing, yes, even in stale formats, and even varies by location. Your small F&M store probably has a different meta than the GP that's being hosted a few cities over. But you know what? I'm more interested in going one step further. Because for all the math and probability that's inherent in this game, there's something that we haven't talked about yet. Not just playing the game, but playing the player. The metagame. In any imperfect game, knowledge is power, and so I don't know about you, but I'm gonna opt to have as much knowledge as humanly possible.
Knowledge is power. Knowledge and power. And I'm going to opt for knowledge is power.
possible. Having more knowledge about what your opponent has in their hand is ultimately going to get you the edge that you need to win. Should you play that game-changing bomb, or does your opponent have something in their hand that's likely to nullify it? It's decisions like that that ultimately determine the winner. But how do you get that sort of information? I mean, sure, there's cards that you can use that'll allow you to directly look at your opponent's hand, or heck, even their entire deck, but maybe you don't want to waste resources on those sorts of cards. So instead, why don't you go directly to the source, the player themselves? It's not about math, it's about man, or woman, or heck, even machine. I don't know about you, but I don't discriminate when it comes to winning. In other card games, the information that you read off your opponent is called their tells, or the signals that they're giving you, either with their body language or the words that they're using. It gives you the tips that you need in order to understand what's actually in their hand.
Or maybe you can just bluff your way out of the tell. Sounds like a good idea, isn't it?
Same goes with Magic, where tells can give top players the edge over their opponents, often leading to the difference between a win and a loss. I know how this one's gonna play out. Now, some tells are gonna be specific to Magic and some aren't, right? The most common tells across any imperfect game have to do with the level of tension that you're holding in your body. When you're up against the ropes, or you've got a hand with nothing in it, well, that's gonna be a tense situation, right? Stressed out players tend to hold their cards slightly higher because their muscles are involuntarily clenching under the pressure, meaning that their arms are gonna be closer to them, their shoulders are gonna be higher, and when they're touching their cards, they're involuntarily gripping them harder and closer than usual. It's a defense mechanism. They're trying to protect themselves by balling up. Chris here, for instance, is a nervous wreck. I mean, look at this guy. Jeez, loosen up. Don't become a poker player, buddy. And proof and concept, let me borrow your cards here. What's he got in his hand? Literally nothing. Nothing. He knows that Amy's got him on the ropes. Here you go.
Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks.
Just trying to save you time. Wrap this one up and get back to work, shall we? The face is obviously another big tell. Players who can't figure out their next move or are just unsure about it tend to continually check their cards as they look for an answer that quite simply isn't there. Whereas if someone isn't going back to their cards as often, they're confident in their next moves, and so playing defensively is likely going to help you win the day. Players' lips also tend to be pressed together instead of relaxed when they're down on their luck. And if you ask them a question, they're less likely to be able to answer.
You don't realize using Uno cards, right? Goldfish?
They're in one fluid sentence because they feel distracted. As humans who've evolved with survival instincts, we also tend to protect ourselves when we're feeling vulnerable. So players without a strategy or just a bad hand are more likely to touch their wrists, touch their neck, touch their face because they're involuntarily trying to protect themselves. Also, be on the lookout for nervous energy coming through leg movements as well. On the other hand, players with strong cards are often excited to execute their strategy, raising their blood pressure and making them flush. Like, they will actually turn a little bit red. Players, meanwhile, who feel like they're at an advantage, also tend to lean forward in their seat as they're excited to get to their next round. And one last one, it's actually really hard to naturally smile when you're losing. So a fully relaxed smile is often a tip-off that the player that you're against is feeling genuinely confident. While any one of these individual tells alone might not be giving away the secrets to your opponent's strategy, they do give you more information than you had before about who you're playing with and how they feel about their situation at any given point in time.
But Pat, I hear you saying, that's all fine and dandy information if I'm sitting across from my opponent, but I live in the middle of nowhere, and I have no friends around me who I can physically play with, so instead I play Magic Arena. How can these sorts of tells help me when I'm playing a computer game? Well, first, let me make it clear, I hear you. I too spent most of my gaming life solo playing multiplayer games.
Same. I mean, there's nothing wrong with solo levels, right? I love solo levels. Yeah, it's definitely not because I couldn't find people to play around with me, but yeah, you know.
Ain't no party like an all-AI Mario Party, because an all-AI Mario Party means you have computerized friends whenever you want that will never leave you.
But to answer your question, those tells can't really do much for you. These tells aren't going to be helpful if you're not physically seeing your opponent, but lucky for us, they aren't the only tells that you can look out for. A lot of decisions go into playing a single hand of Magic, and if you're paying attention, you can actually start to see how your opponent reacts in certain situations, which ends up giving you a lot more free information. First and foremost, pay attention to the speed at which your opponent plays. If your opponent is just
Takes time, think about it, or just instant boom.
speeding through their turn, playing drop after drop, but then suddenly pauses for a long time on their turn before playing nothing, it seems like a good chance that they might be holding something in their hand for your next turn. Typically, if people have multiple options, they're gonna take a little bit longer to figure out what their optimal strategy is.
Tend to be multiple options, tend to be decision delay.
Secondly, pay attention to the lands that they're tapping, or actively not tapping. If your opponent consistently leaves the same 3 lands untapped, 1 island and 2 randoms, they're probably telegraphing a certain card, or just bluffing about it. But either way, it's something to take note of. And speaking of lands, veterans will often hold lands in their hand if they're not needed as a resource on the battlefield. This is to conceal how many options they actually have available to them. If a player only has 2 cards in their hand, they're less likely to have answers to your cards than if they're sitting there with a full grip of, say, 6 or 7 cards. Third, has your opponent passed turn after turn and only interacted with your plays once or twice? Are they not committing anything specific to the battlefield? Sure, they might not have a way of dealing with your plays, or they could be preparing to wrath your board clean on the following turn, basically wiping everything on the board out. If you
Just one clean scoop, then
suspect this to be the case, don't overcommit on the board. Try to play just enough creatures to keep the pressure on, but don't play so much that you'd be afraid to lose it in one devastating attack.
just one devastating attack and just everything just boom, GG.
Now, there are definitely plenty of other things to watch out for, including how your opponent blocks, power levels of cards that they're using, even how they're using their own life total as a resource. But we're running long in this episode, and I'm itching to hop into another match to prove to Jason that he can't always win. Like, randomness at the very least has to wind up on my side at some point, right? So instead, let me leave you with this. In a game of infinite matches, countless permutations of opening hands, and a little bit of randomness thrown in, any edge that you can give yourself is going to be important. Sure, this starts with the math of deck building, but it doesn't end there. This is a game of resources, and information is just another resource. So always make sure that you have more than your opponent. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. And hey, if all this talk about Magic has piqued your interest in the game, you can download Magic Arena free on PC today to try it for yourself. Seriously, please play this game and then get good enough to beat Jason. I mean, Jason is already pretty cocky in his day-to-day life, but he's been unbeatable around the office, and he's been lording his Magic skills over us for like the month that we've been working on this episode, all right? So please, someone beat him. Link is down in the description below.
Oh, come on. Let
Come
me
on.
last at least 5 minutes of this game.
Jason, did you just beat Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, that's no victory.
What?
Ouch! Ouch! That's not victory. Ouch! That burn! Thank you so much for watching this video. If you do like this video, please consider to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And comment down below if you have anything to share with us. Do remember to follow my channel as well. Thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate all of your support. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next time. Oh my god, that was funny. The ending was funny. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much. This video came up from the YouTube channel The Game Theorists, and I'm a huge fan of their work and hope that you will follow and watch more of their videos. Thank you so much for your support. I'm a huge fan of their work. Thank you, and I'll see you next time in my next video. Thank you. Alright. Let's play some Magic.